Hey guys, it's Squishy Boba Forever. Many of you guys enjoyed my first Among Us squishy tutorial, so today I'm back with a part 2 based on your comments on part 1. The first request was to make a hole on the head so that the crewmate can be pieced together and taken apart. Another request I received was to add the knife to the imposter, and the final request was to make the pets. So without further ado, let's get started with the tutorial. In the first video, I already had earplugs at my house, but I ran out, so I actually had to go and buy more. Earplugs are surprisingly expensive, so if you don't already own them, then you can also use memory foam, a car sponge, or a dish sponge. I bought the rounded earplugs this time so I don't have to shape the head. Anyways, I'm going to show you how to make the standard crewmate body. I showed this in part 1, so I'm just going to go over this quickly. So first you want to trim it down to how tall you want it to be, and then you're going to cut 2 lines and plug the middle part for the feet. And to make the legs more visible, I'm going to cut a U shape to separate the body and the legs. Next, I'm going to make the crewmate skinnier by cutting the back a little bit and then smoothing it out. Next, I'm going to cut a square with the remaining piece from earlier. This is going to be the oxygen tank. I'm going to glue that down with Puffy paint. I'm also going to glue down the visor. And this is how all your Among Us crewmates should look like. Now I'm going to go into the details, but every single crewmate or imposter starts with this space. The first crewmate is going to be cyan and it's the dead body. So I cut the crewmate in half and I'm going to make a hole on both pieces. I'm just using pliers and continuously plucking until I get a big enough hole. I didn't show how to make the bone in this video, but I showed it in part 1. I'm going to paint the body with mint fabric paint, and that's the closest color I had to cyan. Puffy paint dries flexible so it won't crack when you squish it. If you try to use other paints like acrylic paint or watercolor, it will crack and you won't be able to squish it. After that's done, I'm going to paint the inside with red so it looks like blood. Do that for both the head and the body. And while the red paint is still wet, you want to put the bone inside. And just like that, our first DIY is done. Although the head and the body did piece together very well, I had a problem with them sticking together after I squished it. Puffy paint is a little sticky, so if you do try squishing it together, it might stick together, just a heads up. But you can still take them apart as long as you pull them apart slowly so that the paint doesn't rip off. I forgot to mention this earlier, but for the visor, I painted it 3 different shades of blue. It's a darker blue on the bottom and white at the top. I'm going to paint this crewmate red. I honestly thought I could cover this with 1 layer of paint, but it actually was transparent, and I think I did about 3 or 4 layers of paint. So this time I decided to add a hat, and the hat I chose is the fried egg. I also made this out of earplugs, but I thought it was kind of self-explanatory, so I didn't show how I did it. And here's the final squishy. It's extremely slow rising and nobody has time to wait for it to rise back up, so I'm going to cut the clip early. Sorry if you wanted to see it rise all the way back up, but I promise you it does. The next one I'm making is the pink imposter. The imposter has floaty hands, but obviously I can't do that with squishies, so I just glued that to the top, and I also made a little sword for it. All these pieces were made from earplugs, but I didn't show the process because my fat fingers were covering it the whole time. And the final crewmate I'm making is the yellow one. It's just a plain crewmate. Finally, we can move on to the adorable pets. This is my personal favorite, which is the mini crewmate, or I guess it could also be the child. So I'm basically going to do the same thing as the regular crewmates, except I'm making the earplug smaller. Cut it down to the size you want it to be. After I was happy with the size of the earplug, I cut 2 lines and plugged the middle like I did with the big one. And I also cut out a square for the oxygen tank and a circle for the visor. Glue those down with Puffy paint. Isn't this the cutest thing ever? You thought that the earplug crewmate was mini, but this one is the real mini squishy. It's almost the same size as my pinky fingernail. The next pet is Brain Slug, and this is going to be the most complex one. This one's kind of confusing to explain, but I'll try my best. So first I started off with a cylinder shape, and then I cut that into a T shape. Afterwards, I cut it down even more so that it looks like the shape of a hat. And then I rounded the top part so that it doesn't look like a block. And for the bottom part, I cut 3 curves. It kind of looks like a fidget spinner. I went ahead and painted that green, and for the eyeball, you just put 1 dot of white paint and a smaller dot of brown or black paint. And then you're done with your Brain Slug squishy. The final squishy is the UFO. For this, you want to cut the top part of the earplug and the bottom part. So with the bottom part of the earplug, I'm going to round off the edges on both the top and the bottom. So it should look similar to a pancake. Originally, I was going to use the top part for the dome, but as you can see, it's too big, so I had to cut that down. And then I pieced them together with Puffy paint and painted it. This is it for this tutorial. Thank you so much for making it this far in the video. I do want to make a bigger version of the imposter with its mouth open, along with a bigger crewmate. So let me know if you guys do want a tutorial on that, or if you guys are sick of these Among Us videos. But thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys!